Hello YouTube, this is Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review. Now, as promised in my video with the Ethiopian beer where it actually went a bit crazy on me, I'm going to do a Belgian beer review this time. Now this is the Van Steenberge Brouwerij Gulden Draak beer. So for those of you who are interested in the history of the beer, I'll just take you through that just now, but if you're simply interested in the tasting of the beer, just fast forward the video to a few minutes before the end and you'll catch the individual information on this beer as well as the tasting session. But anyway, let's get going with the history of this beer. I'll just take you through that just now. Now, the history of the Van Steenberge brewery goes back to 1784, and there were hundreds of home breweries in Flanders at this time, and this was simply because the drinking water was of a very low quality, so it was basically safer for them to drink beer than it was to drink water. But the brewery itself is located in a little village called Ertvelde, and it was founded by Jean-Baptiste de Bruyn under the name de Peer. Now, following his death, his wife Angelina Patronella Schelfo continued the brewery, and then upon her death it was passed to her cousin Joseph Schelfo, who he'd basically assisted her for many years and was very familiar with the art of brewing. Now, his daughter Margriet married Paul von Steenberge, whose name the brewery obviously bears today, but he was a professor of microbiology in the Ghent Brewing School. Now, Paul von Steenberge took charge of the brewery following the end of the First World War in 1919, and he changed the name of the brewery to Brouwerij Bios, and this was basically after the beer that was introduced at the same time. Now, he was very, very interested in politics, and he actually served as the mayor of Ertvelde and as a senator in the Belgian parliament, but he was a real businessman, and he launched several other beers during his tenure, such as the Bios Flemish Bourgogne, which is an old brown beer, and the Loitebok, which is a lager, but he also made several major investments in the infrastructure of the brewery, and this included a new brewing hall, new tanks, and he initiated the switch from wooden barrels to glass bottles. But in truth, Paul's instincts as a businessman always outweighed his passion for brewing, and after the brewery had struggled during the years of the First World War, he actually put it into a cooperation as a means to cut costs. But all during this time, his wife Margriet had been raising their young son, Joseph van Steenberge, and she basically saw this as a sellout, as she was the one who had actually inherited the brewery from her father. However, Joseph inherited her passion for brewing, but when his father died in 1962, Joseph took over the management of the brewery, and he focused the brewery on the production of high fermentation beers. But just like his father before, he was also very, very passionate about politics, and he served as the mayor of Ertvelde and as a senator in the Belgian parliament, and the brewery only got his full attention in 1978 when, at the age of 64, his political service to the country ended. Now, when he took over the brewery, he got rid of the malt house and the hop plantations which had been put in place by his grandfather Joseph Schelfo, and he decided instead that the brewery would purchase its raw materials with very strict specifications. Now, in 1978, the company also acquired a recipe for a beer that the Augustan friars had brewed at their Ghent monastery, and then this was fine-tuned before being released in 1982, and he also completed the range of the high fermentation beers during this period. Now, upon launching the range of beers, there wasn't really a very high demand for the high percentage beers that come out of Belgium. However, they say that since 2000, they've noticed a real upturn in the brewery's sales, and there's a clear increase in demand for more speciality beers. And I mean, you notice that throughout the world with the number of kind of craft breweries that you see popping up all over the place now. But in 1990, Joseph's son Paul took over the company, and he modernised the brewery a great deal, introducing a fully automated brewing hall, a new computerised barrel filling station, a water purification installation, a new bottling plant, and also a steam plant that used natural gas as a fuel. But he was joined by his cousin Jeff Vercelli, and then this particular cousin, he expanded the company's export market, mainly working with companies in the US, the Netherlands and Italy. But the brewery's main brands are Gulden Draak, which I have here, Pirat, which I didn't realise, I've got a bottle of that as well, I didn't realise that was from the same brewery as this particular beer, and they also have the famous Augustan range. Now, in terms of the Gulden Draak, there are two different types of Gulden Draak. This one with the white label, and then there's the 9000, which has a black label. But the name Gulden Draak actually has a very interesting thing behind it, and as you can see on the label, you can see that basically Gulden Draak means golden dragon. As you can see from the label here, you've got this particular golden dragon. Now, this actually has an interesting story behind it as well. The name Gulden Draak comes from the gilded dragon statue that is on top of the Belfry Church in Ghent. Now, it's said that this gilded dragon first featured on the prow of the ship of the Norwegian king Sigrid Magnusson, who left on crusade in 1111. Now he offered the statue to the Emperor of Constantinople, which is obviously modern day Istanbul, to put atop the Hagia Sophia. Now a few hundred years later, the Flemish Count Baldwin IX brought the dragon to Bruges, and this eventually, after the Battle of Beverhout in 1382, the dragon was taken as a war trophy by the Ghent inhabitants, and then it was placed on top of the belfry to basically protect the city. So as you can see, the Gulden Draak actually has a very, very interesting history behind it. But anyway, let's get on with the tasting of this beer now. I'll just let you have a closer look at the bottle art and the bottle cap on this one. Now, as I said earlier, you can see the golden dragon on this one here that sits atop the Ghent belfry in Belgium. The bottle cap as well is quite simple. It has just the golden dragon on it. But they're actually very proud of their label on this one. They say that none of the other speciality beers that come out of Belgium, and believe me, there's a hell of a lot of speciality beers come out of Belgium, but they say that this label is very, very unique, and they're very, very proud of that particular fact. But anyway, let's get on with the tasting of this beer. Now this one is a 10.5% dark triple, but you can also call it a Belgian strong ale. But let's just get this guy open. I'll take it away from my desk so that it doesn't do what the Ethiopian beer did. But let's just get this guy out and see what he's like. Now as you can see, it's a very kind of dark ambery colour, almost mahogany actually. It's a nice good bit of head coming on that one, just let that settle a bit. The head's quite bubbly actually, very nice for Belgian beers actually. They have all this nice head on them, I have to say. And when I hold this up to the light, it's actually got a bit of a red tinge to it. I can't really see any carbonation. Well, there is a little bit of carbonation actually, but it's very difficult to see simply because of the colour of the beer. As you can see, it's got a very, very nice kind of two-fingerish head on it, I would say. Very kind of fluffy head. Some big bubbles in there as well though. In terms of the aroma, there's a lot of kind of nice dark fruits in there, I would say. I actually it smells really, really like a Belgian beer. It's a kind of weird thing to say in a beer review, but it has that kind of typical Belgian smell. If you're used to Belgian beers, you know what I mean. But it's got a lot of dark fruits. There's some nice kind of caramel in there with some yeast. Belgian yeast. It must be the kind of Belgian yeast that kind of gives it this particular stereotypical Belgian beer smell. But interestingly enough, I'm not smelling too much of the alcohol. Sometimes the high percentage beers, this one being 10.5%, sometimes you can actually get a real smell of the alcohol out of this, but nothing really. It smells like a very stereotypical Belgian beer. That nice hint of caramel and some nice dark fruits in there, I have to say. It's actually a really nice smell one. I could sit and smell this all day, but I better get on with the tasting. Now the first thing that comes out of this, the first thing I'm getting is the sort of brown sugar element to it. Yeah, there's a real element of brown sugar to it, and then it's following up with the kind of dark fruits. But there's a nice, actually, just looking on the aftertaste of it, even though I'm just getting started on it, there's a real nice roastiness to it, I have to say. Let's take a bigger gulp of it. Yeah, there's a really, really nice roastiness on the tongue of this one, and there's just a very small bite from the hops on it. But the main flavours in this really are the kind of brown sugary caramel toffee thing. There's maybe just a hint of vanilla in there as well, but then this is followed by the dark fruits, and then you get the nice kind of roastiness on the aftertaste. In terms of the mouth on this one, I would say it's quite full-bodied. It's quite a syrupy beer, actually, I would say. But it's really, really nice, I have to say. I really like this one. I've tried one of the Gulden Draaks before, but I can't remember if it was the Black Label one or this one. But I mean, to be honest, I actually have a feeling that it's the Black Label one I've tried before, but this is a beautiful beer, I have to say. I started out drinking German beers, but I've only just recently got more into the Belgian stuff upon finding the 6 Degrees North brewery opening up in Aberdeen. But this is a really, really beautiful beer. Like I say, caramel flavours followed by dark fruits, and it's got that nice kind of hop thing that balances it out. I mean, in terms of the smell, one thing it actually reminds me a lot of the smell is rum. It actually has a very kind of rummy smell to it, I would say. But like I say, this is the first thing that comes with this is caramel and dark fruit flavoured. It has that typical Belgian smell and taste. You get a little bit, you can tell it's a stronger beer. It's 10.5%. You get that little bit of warmth off the alcohol, but this is a really, really beautiful beer. I would say if you get the chance, definitely try this or the Black Label Gulden Draak. I can't really speak for the other beers at the moment, but I will review Pirate for you at a later stage, and you can check that out yourself as well, obviously. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. This is a really, really nice Belgian beer, and I'd highly recommend that if you get the chance you try it. Now I'll be back in the next day or so with another beer review. I'm not quite sure exactly what I'll do yet, but thanks again for watching, and please let me know your own thoughts on this beer, and indeed suggest Belgian beers to me, those of you from Belgium who are watching, and indeed those of you who have a bit of a soft spot for Belgian beer. And please let me know your own thoughts on this particular beer itself in the comment section, but please like, subscribe the videos if you're interested, share them with your friends. But thanks again for watching, and I shall catch you soon. Cheers.